You are at a party. The music is good. The room is warm and full of people, and some of them are your friends. You are holding a drink, and you are smiling, and you are in the middle of everything. And somewhere in there, without warning, a cold little feeling opens up in your chest. You look around at all of it, the laughing, the talking, the closeness, and you have rarely felt more alone in your life. Then, a few nights later, you spend an entire evening completely by yourself. No one texts, no one comes over, and you feel fine, calm, even content, which makes no sense. You were surrounded by everyone and desolate. You were alone with no one and at peace. So how can a room full of people be lonelier than an empty one? We treat loneliness as a problem of numbers. Too few people around you, we think, so the cure is simple: add more. Go out, be in the crowd, but the numbers don't add up. If loneliness were really about how many people were near you, the party would be the cure and the empty apartment would be the sickness. And you have felt in your own body that it is sometimes exactly the other way around. So loneliness was never really about how many people are close to you. It's about a gap. And a crowded room, it turns out, can stretch that gap wider than any empty one ever could. Here is the thing researchers keep finding. Loneliness is not the same as being alone. Being alone is just a fact, a count of the people in the room. Loneliness is a feeling, and it measures something else entirely: the distance between the connection you want and the connection you actually have. When those two things match, you feel fine, no matter the number. Alone on a quiet evening, wanting to be alone, no gap, no ache. That's not loneliness, that's solitude, and it can feel wonderful. But when what you have falls short of what you long for, a gap opens, and that gap is the whole of it. Loneliness isn't the empty chair beside you. It's the distance between you and the person you wish were in it, which means a crowd can't fix loneliness by simply being a crowd, because the crowd changes the number of people near you. It does nothing on its own about the gap. And this is why the party can hurt so much more than the empty room. An empty room promises you nothing. You walk in already knowing there is no one to connect with, so there is no gap to fall into just quiet. But a crowded room makes a promise. It is loud with connection. It says, here it is, all around you, the very thing you want. Warmth, closeness, belonging right here. And then it doesn't hand it to you. That's the cruelty of it. To stand in the middle of laughter that isn't yours. To be inches from conversations that don't include you. To watch closeness happening on every side and feel none of it land on you. That is not the absence of connection an empty room has that, and it's bearable. This is worse. This is connection you can see and hear and almost touch, held just out of reach. The crowd doesn't remove the thing you need. It shows it to you and keeps it. Now go one layer deeper into what you're actually missing. What you need when you're lonely is not simply people in your vicinity. It's to be seen, to be held for a moment in someone else's mind, to matter to a particular person, to know that if you vanished from the room, there is someone here for whom the room would change. And a crowd gives you the exact opposite of that. In a crowd, you are perceived by dozens of people and known by none of them. You are a face in the background of 100 other evenings registered and not held. Everyone can see you, and no one is thinking of you. You could dissolve where you stand, and the party would close over the space and go on. You can feel it most sharply in a very particular moment. A joke lands and the whole group laughs, and there's a half second where everyone's eyes flick to a friend sharing it, and yours have nowhere to go. Or the group photo where everyone leans into someone, and you feel the small, cold arithmetic of not quite having a person to lean into. Tiny things, but they are the gap, made suddenly, precisely visible. That is the specific ache of the crowded room. Not that no one is near, that everyone is near, and no one is holding you in their mind. But why does it hurt so physically? Why a cold drop in the chest, and not just a passing thought? Because loneliness is not a weakness, or a mood, or a character flaw. Researchers who studied it came to see it as something much older, an alarm. A biological signal, as deep as hunger or thirst or pain. For a social animal like us, being cut off from the group was not sad, it was lethal. Alone, our ancestors couldn't defend themselves, or feed a child, or survive the night. So evolution wired in an alert that fires when we drift from our people and makes it hurt on purpose. So we'll go back. And here is the part that turns the crowded room cruel. That alarm doesn't measure distance. It measures the feeling of connection. So a crowd that surrounds your body but not your heart trips the alarm anyway. Worse, once it's ringing, it changes how you see. A lonely brain becomes watchful, defensive, tuned for rejection. Researchers have found that when loneliness sets in, people start to read the room differently. Neutral faces look colder, glances feel like judgments, a friend's short reply becomes evidence of something wrong. It's not that you've become weak, your brain has simply switched into self-protection, bracing for the exclusion it now expects. So the alarm stands you in a room full of perfectly ordinary strangers and quietly turns them into a jury. And feeling watched and judged, you do the natural thing, you pull back. You go quiet, you cross your arms and check your phone and wait for it to be over, which sends every signal that you want to be left alone. So people leave you alone. And the distance you were dreading becomes real, built partly by the very fear of it. The alarm meant to pull you back toward people can, in a crowd, be the thing that walls you off from them. And then we did something no humans before us had ever done. We built the biggest crowded room in history. We packed ourselves into cities of millions where you can walk for an hour past 1,000 faces and not be known by a single one. And then we built another crowd on top of that, made of glass and light, a feed where you carry hundreds, thousands of people in your pocket and watch their closeness scroll past, all day, forever. More contact than any human beings have ever had, and, by many measures, lonelier than we've ever been. Because a train car of strangers is proximity, not connection. 1,000 followers is an audience, not a friend. And a feed is the crowded room in its purest form. It is built almost entirely out of other people's closeness. Their parties, their friendships, their someones serve to you one after another while you watch alone in the dark. It shows you the connection endlessly and hands you none of it. We took the crowded room, the one that aches precisely because it shows you what you can't reach, and we scaled it up until it covered the whole earth and never once closed. So the crowd doesn't make you lonely because there is something wrong with you. It makes you lonely because it does something very particular. It takes the exact thing you were built to need, to be known, to be held in someone's mind, and it sets it all around you, close enough to see, and then it doesn't give it to you. The ache you feel in that bright, loud room is not a verdict on your worth. It's an instrument. It is the oldest part of you, pointing precisely, insistently at the one thing all those people are not yet giving you. So here is the gentler way to hear it. The loneliness that finds you in a crowded room is not telling you that you're broken or unlovable, or that it will always be like this. It is telling you what you need. And what it's asking for is smaller and more possible than the whole roaring party. Not more people, one. One person who truly sees you. One real conversation in the corner while the noise goes on without you. That's the strange hope buried in the ache. The fix was never to be less alone. It was to be more known. And the same crowd that opened the gap is sometimes exactly where it quietly closes, in the one face that turns and actually stays. So the next time a room full of people leaves you cold, try not to read it as proof that you don't belong anywhere. Read it as the oldest instinct you have, doing its job, pointing past all those faces toward the single kind of nearness that would actually reach you. You are not too alone. You are just not yet seen. And those, it turns out, are very different things.